it does always feel like the V promos kind of go under the radar when it comes to news updates. You never really see anyone talk about them as much. These days, there's a lot of D cards, really. Like today, we had people talking about Reziel and Blankmeyer, but I haven't really seen anyone posting about these cards. So, kind of want to just go through, well, the Genesis one, because I'm not really kind of big into D Police. So, just focus on that one. So this is actually a witch card. It belongs to a subclan. So a lot of these promos, they don't actually belong to any subclans, except for like maybe the cycler that they had in the last wave. So the Genesis one happened to be a sorcerer card, and technically sorcerer is sort of part of a subclan. So you could use witch support cards, for example, like the critical trigger from the G series, which says if you have a witch Vanguard, you can basically shuffle the crit back into your deck. Look at top 3, 1 to soul, 2 to drop zone. Or you can use stuff like, for example, Fixus, the grade 1 back in V series, where you could basically, when you place it, it has like an Abyssal Owl V series kind of condition where if your opponent's grade is the same or greater, then you can Soul Blast 1 instead of Can Blast 1. And then we do is look at top 4, and then you look for a Witch or Sorcerer and add to your hand. So you can even add this grade 1 to your hand from it as well. So you got quite a handful of things that kind of make it a lot better. So very interesting promo, partly because of the name in of itself as well. But if you ever want to play maybe Witch Premium, it kind of feels a bit better playing this as well. You've also got the Witch Perfect guards as well in Genesis. So they pretty much have like all the keywords more or less in Witches, which is very handy to have. But then to kind of go on to the skill, and it's quite fortunate we've got Genesis quite early as well, because we've had to wait ages for the last one when we had Ramonis. But I had a feeling that Genesis would be early, because sometimes I kind of do wonder if they order releases based on, like, for example, how strong they think a deck is. So maybe like the weaker ones, or rather the ones that don't really make as much use or kind of are living without it, they would get the cards earlier. So the reason why I'd suggest that with something like Genesis is because Genesis have cards in Ket Sanctuary that can return heal triggers to your hand. So you sort of have pseudo G Guardians in a way off of these sort of cards, including Rerelim, which you may have seen in some Fenrir lists as well. But even just Genesis lists in general could run it. Like for example, Regalia, I've tested it out as well in those sorts of decks, just to kind of add things like heals or other important cards to hand, add in the turn, because obviously with G guards you don't really need them during the main phase, like with Diorong, because Diorong you can add cards instantly, like for example CO Yggdrasil or something else that's important. But with end of battle skills, at that point you start to kind of more often prioritize defensive cards to retreat to hand, because your turn's pretty much over anyway, so you can't really call and use any main phase skills. So it's sort of why I felt like maybe the Genesis Pro might be one of the earlier ones, because it just seemed a bit weird to kind of hold off on it, because it didn't really feel like a massive game changer in that kind of respect. But at the same time, what does feel a bit like a changer is the skill. Minor, but very helpful. So the skill is very similar to an already existing G Guardian, which is the Witch Queen of Accomplishments, Loria. It's a Generation Break 1 G Guardian. So it's the one that's from Fire's collection from many years back, when they had all the Generation Break 1 skills. And what that one used to do is that you can take normal units, up to 3, of the same grade, and then you shuffle them back into your deck, and then you gain 5k shield for every card you return. So you had a base shield of 15k shield. Maximum you get is 15k shield, so 30,000 total. It's quite similar to this, because what this does is that, so when it's placed on guard from hand, you can remove a heal from your hand or drop, and then you choose up to 4 normal units, so not 3 but 4 this time, with the same grades from your soul or drop in total. Sorry, yeah, it's not just the drop, not just the drop itself, but also soul. I always think of just the drop because it's more efficient, obviously, but you can also with Loria take cards from your soul as well, so that can be helpful. For example, if you say you want to use the Amaruda Stride and you want to try and get your soul to 4 or less, that's always helpful, because then you can meet the condition for next turn. And then what you do with this is you take those 4 cards, and if there's 2 of them that have gone back into your deck, it gains 20k shield. So as long as you do at least 2 in the total 4, then it becomes the same shield value as the old G Guard Loria. So it's very comparable. Only thing is, Loria had to do 3 cards back out of 3 rather than 2 out of 4. So this is actually a more lower condition but maximum potential version, because then the next part of the skill is that If you put 4 back, then you can do a count loss 1, and then you choose your Vanguard and you give power plus 5. So you can get up to 35,000 power, which is also helpful if you need that extra burst shield. But there is a downside to this because you need to try and get 4 cards in your soul and drop with the same grade. That means that's more for longer game ability. If it's a long game ability, that means it's going to be hard to do in the early game. So this is a weakness with this card, in which your opponent can still rush the crap out of you with this quite easily as well. But also just the fact that you also have to more or less remove a heal in the first place is already a condition for itself. But this kind of makes it even more tighter to get the kind of desperate 5k on top. So just be aware of that as well. That yeah, you are still a little bit more vulnerable compared to, say, OTT, where Oracle Think Tank, it's very easy to do the conditions to get the extra 5k shield. But then again, the Oracle Think Tank one does force you to reverse stack, so you can see the top cover of your deck, but if you see a trigger, then you're just going to have to pick between damage checking that or getting the 5k, which isn't too bad still, but just something to kind of note as well. But I think what's kind of interesting about this is that I kind of felt that we'd have some sort of anti-deck out G-Guard, because we do seem to be getting quite a few cards that are anti-deck out. So Orange Witch Valencia we had not that long ago. Honestly, I can't remember how long it's been since Clan Collection and Fortuna. It might have even been 2 years ago, actually. Maybe time flies. But then on top of that, we've had also the magic card, or the sort of the witch looking thing, the Frost Witch. I can't remember what her name is now, but I made a video recently, or a month ago or something about it. It's the new card in Minerva that basically adds a card from your drop to your hand and returns another card to the deck. I think you have to have the same name though for those cards. So when I saw the original translation, I don't think it said that in the one that I looked at, but I think since then there's been a translation where it has to be the same name. So a bit awkward, because if you don't meet the conditions right, then it can be a bit weird. But that card is also an anti-deck out card because you increase your deck by 1. And then we've also got the V promo cycler card, Ramonis, as well, which has the same thing too, where when you attack while boosted, count plus 1, take a draw or crit trigger, and then you put it into the bottom of your deck, and then you activate the effect. So we've got a lot of these cards that can increase your deck size in Genesis. They seem to be kind of making this more for norm now as well, which is kind of interesting. So I guess you got a lot less reason to worry about deck out in Genesis. Very interesting. And that is, yeah, just one observation there. But otherwise, generally, ease of splashing a lot of decks, I think. It being a grade 1 does kind of help, because I think Genesis's best cards are usually grade 2s anyway. So very easy to fit in. And unlike Rare Limb, you don't really have to kind of go through all the wonky kind of long-winded ways. And I just think it's very helpful that you don't have to rely on playing into Loria as well to prevent deck. And also, if you're getting something like Oracle Think Tank, and they're on Ichikishima or even Gridora, and let's just say you're still in the game, you don't have to be thinking about, oh darn, I can't use a G-Guard to prevent deck out. And due to that, it means actually by playing this grade 1, you're less reliant on cards like, say, Ordinal, which I play quite a lot in Regalia usually, or even Expel Angel or Dreaming Dragon, etc, etc. You don't have to play like all these cards, or Claim Harry, just to try and slow down deck out. You can rely on these more now because you're doing 4 in one go, and you don't have to worry about the G-Guard restricts that Gridora and Ichikishima do, because this card gets around G-Guard restrict anyway, as long as it's not attacking with Popo, because if it's attacking with Popo, then you can't use this. But if, or even V-Series Silent Tom, actually, because that says you can't guard normal units. So as long as you're not dealing with those, let's just say your opponent swings a Vanguard, use it then and there, get the 5k boost bonus, nice while at it, but just prevent deck out more or less, so you can survive next turn and do drive checks as well. And since it's Genesis, it's a Force clan, so it's usually not that big of a deal, because you can still just go for Force 2, gain the crits, that kind. Or if you're playing Ramonis, you can just artificially create crits anyway with that card. So it's not the worst deck to be returning normal units in, because you do have ways, if you want to play into certain things, to gain crits and all that. So kind of handy. I think that's probably it for now on my thoughts. I can't wait to splash it in, and it does feel very liberating in terms of, you know, I kind of have a decent idea on what grade 1s I'll consider taking out as well. So yeah, excited to try it out, and let me know what you guys think, how you're finding, what kind of plays you think about doing with it, and I will see you guys around. Take care now. Bye.